just sitting and listening to the first two speakers and thinking, and we've got this area at the back called natural building. And why natural building materials? And listening to the previous two speakers, a big chunk of this is because that a lot of these building materials work together, and they have similar properties, and they have different properties, and they work together. Earth, which is what I'm going to talk to you about, sits with this family of materials, and you can do lots of different things with it, as you can with lime and these and some of the stuff that we've looked at with hemp and so on. So there's a number of different things that I could talk about. I've got 12 minutes. It's like a ridiculously small amount of time. Sustainability, heritage, health and well-being, supply chain, where the stuff comes from, training, how do you know that somebody can do the work. But I'm just going to initially start off with types, because clay does lots of different things. So this is a cob building, which also has straw bale and timber and glass and lime. Cob is a very well-known building type in the UK, but this happens to be in Sligo, which is right on the North Atlantic. And basically it doesn't stop raining. From one end of the year to the other, it just doesn't stop raining. So why are we now going to use mud, which obviously is going to dissolve first drop of rain, to build a house with, and big fat walls of mud? Well, because it does a number of different things. Apart from the fact that it doesn't all wash away in the rain, it buffers heat, it buffers cold, does a whole number of different things, including internal humidity. And I'll kind of come back to talk about that a bit more. So this is residential cob, and we're doing some research on this. This is a timber structure with a clay infill, which is heavy, so it's thermal mass rather than insulation, and this is wattle and daub. And wattle and daub is another of these materials, like cob, which is used by humans everywhere around the world. And this is the kind of slightly more updated wattle and daub, where the fill is a much higher percentage of fibre, but held together with clay. This comes to be known as light earth. And light earth can be used in a number of different ways. Typically it's within a timber frame, but we started doing work where we're combining cob and light earth in structures. And if you just pop round the corner there, you'll see a whole lot of different ways of making clay bricks, adobe bricks, moulded earth bricks, lots of different names for essentially the same thing. Again, this is a universal human expression, and you can play around with it and do interesting things. You don't have to go in straight lines or go round sharp corners. Rammed earth. So there's this whole family of materials, structural and non-structural, and the thing that links them together is clay. So rammed earth is put together much drier with a certain amount of compression in a mould. The mould can be whatever shape you can make a mould, and then you're making a wall which is quite dense and structurally load-bearing. And so you've got this family of, and I've got one more to come, but before I get there, I'm just going to talk a little bit about plasters, because plasters is a very easy way in with lime and with clay, because it's not holding up the roof. So whatever you build the building out of, you put a finish on it which has a whole lot of properties. And there's research on this, and we know that a greater thickness of clay plaster will give you more benefit in terms of humidity buffering and VOCs and all of this stuff than a thinner one. So there are more things that we understand about it. And so this particular building is the Belgian Apple store. So it's getting used in all sorts of, clay plasters are being used in all sorts of funny ways which you wouldn't necessarily think about, but they realise that a lot of people coming into their store and breathing and sweating and making all of this humidity makes it uncomfortable for people with asthma, who'll then go and buy an Android instead. So they put a nice clay plaster inside, and it keeps people coming into their stores. clays come in a whole range of different colours, and you can add other colours to them, and people like doing decorative stuff with them, but maybe you just want a flat blue wall. One of the things about clay and its ability to buffer humidity is that if you put a plastic coat over it, like a PVA paint, it doesn't work as well, but you can put the colour into the plaster, and then you don't need to paint it with whatever colour you choose. Or you can do something, say a bit more decorative. So just quickly, a couple of key themes. We've just done a little bit of research which shows that there's 12,000 cob homes which have sold in the UK, well, in England and Wales, in the last 12 years. There's a lot of it there, and that it's highly sustainable, and it's sustainable in construction terms and in its use. I'm not. This is time. I'm not going to talk about cement, but you get a lot of CO2 for a very small amount of cement, and you can also use clays in passive house type design, using mass alongside insulation. But I'm going to go somewhere else and talk about heritage. People do talk about earth as being rather a short-lived material. I've had someone on the stand talking to me this morning about the Great Wall of China, 2,000 years old, still going strong, largely made out of earth. This is Iraq. This is 5,000 years BC, and it's essentially what we would call terrace housing. I just wanted to say one other thing. This is kind of one other building type that I haven't talked about, which we've never really thought about as being an earth building. But this is actually stone building. And stone building, when you talk to people, they say, oh yeah, that's lime mortar. And we know that a lot of stone building has a lot of lime mortar, but we also know that a lot of stone building has clay mortar with just a little bit of lime to protect the outside edge. So you can see that image on the left-hand side, that behind that little bit of lime on the outside, there's clay. And actually clay and stone are a fantastic combination that you'll find, again, wherever there are humans. And it may be that it has a little bit of lime on the outside, or it might have a lime render. A lot of things that we in the past have thought about as being one thing, we're now starting to consider to be belong to our world of earth building. Okay, how am I doing for time? Another 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, all right, so I'm going to go back and go to health and well-being. So the thing about health and well-being, we've talked about health and well-being to the people that are in the building, but I'd want to just start with health and well-being to the people who are putting the building together, right? Because things like concrete are extremely aggressive and cause all sorts of problems to skin, to respiratory. On earth building sites, no one really wears masks or gloves or any of that kind of protective stuff. The biggest issue that we've had on an earth building site is when we're working with chalk. Chalk's very white, it's very bright, and when you're working in sunny conditions, you go snowblind. So normally we have to wear dark glasses. That's about as dangerous as it gets. So there's that kind of thing, and this is typical of most natural building materials, is that they are kind of good for you. You can kind of eat them if you want to, whereas a lot of these types of materials, not so much. And then there's, of course, the buildings in use, and we've heard a little bit about humidity buffering and all of these kinds of things. Clay is the humidity buffer of all humidity buffers, and the thicker you make it, the better. So, and there's a bit of science about it, and they've measured how much buffering that you get depending on the thickness, as I was mentioning before. And it's important because, again, as been mentioned before, you've got this area here between around the 50% mark of internal humidity is where we get our comfort, and it's where everything else gets its lack of comfort. So bacteria, virus, mold, mite, asthma, tracheal infection, chemical infection, ozone protection. It's all, you all want to be in that 50% area, and that's what clay does to you, for you. And so a lot of the people coming on the stand this morning, I'm saying, just think about plasters. They'll stick to pretty much anything, and they'll just improve the air without you having to turn them on and off. They're just there, they do it. In the bathroom, have your shower. The mirror doesn't steam up because all of the steam has gone into the wall. You get dressed, you go to work, the steam comes out again, and that 50% level has been respected. So you're not getting the mold build-up and all of that. Am I done now? I mean, I could go on and on. Another 30 seconds, I could go on and on. I've only just started. I've just hit my stride now. So yeah, there's also now work on VOCs and VOCs capture. We've heard a little bit about with lime as well. Clay does that too, particularly formaldehyde at the bottom there, which is the sort of common big chemical that people are concerned about now because it's in so many things. That you build your beautiful naturally produced building, and then you bring in a lovely sofa with its foam retardants, and your air qualities just drop through the floor. So we're trying to think about how to manage these things too. Okay, thank you very much.